we have some people who have their books here. Maybe some people have their books online. So to recap where we left off last week, there were 3 main points that we got out of the last excerpt, and that was that our true nature is steadfast and unwavering no matter what. Who and what we are never changes. Even though we change the way we experience it, we change the way we show up as it always remains the same. And sometimes as we get closer to realizing our dreams or realizing our personal legend, we can become faced with more and more and more challenges, right? And there will be a little bit more about that tonight. But as we face those challenges again and again and again, or sort of the new ones as they come along, we're better equipped to face those challenges because of everything that we've navigated and worked through up until now. And then the last thing was about permission. About, do we need to get permission from external sources to be who and what we truly are, to express more fully as the love we are, as the source we are, as the infinite potentiality that we are? No, it can help sometimes, but ultimately the only permission that we need is from ourselves. And then really, when it comes down to it, because we already are that incredible, amazing awesomeness at our core, we don't even need permission from ourselves. We just need to be it more fully. And so where we left off in the book is the boy had fallen in love with Fatima, and he had told her that he wasn't sure what he was going to do, but she said, look, I love you, and true love will never stand in the way of someone realizing their personal legend. So if you need to go, go. If you want to stay, stay. But it's totally 100% up to you. I am still here to love you regardless. So, after this conversation with Fatima, the boy went to look for the Englishman. He wanted to tell him about Fatima. He was surprised when he saw that the Englishman had built himself a furnace outside his tent. It was a strange furnace fueled by firewood with a transparent flask heating on top. As the Englishman stared out at the desert, his eyes seemed brighter than they had when he was reading his books. The first phase of the job, he said, I have to separate out the sulfur. To do that successfully, I must have no fear of failure. It was my fear of failure that kept me from attempting the master work. Now I'm beginning what I should have started 10 years ago, but I'm happy at least that I didn't wait 20 years. And so here, the alchemist, who has spent decades, tons of energy, time, tons of reading and studying and all that kind of stuff, theorizing, finally, he was given permission by the alchemist last time to go and start his work. And so he's finally actually trying it. And he's super excited because even though it might seem like, oh my gosh, he wasted all those 10 years, no, he's like, oh my God, I'm actually going to try it now. I'm going to do it now. And I'm glad I found this out now so that I don't waste or use up another 10 years. And so this reminded me, because of this fear of failure thing, like how often fear of failure can stop us from even trying something because we're so afraid that we're not going to be able to do it, or we're so afraid that maybe we'll disappoint someone or what other people will think of us. But it took me back to a book that I read in practitioner studies many years ago at the beginning of my spiritual studies, and it was by Thomas More, called Care of the Soul. It's a very well-known book, and there's a lot of myth in there, there's a lot of psychology in there, and he has a chapter in there on failure. And in that chapter, there was a line that just blew my mind wide open and gave me a completely different perspective on failure the moment that I read the line. Now, I don't have the quote for you, but I can tell you what it meant to me and what I still hold dear to this day, and that failure is not who and what I am. It's simply an element of the work that I do, okay? And so failure doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be something that's negative. It's just a part of the journey. It's a part of the process. And so as the boy is sitting, listening to this, the boy then decides to go out into the desert because he really has this big decision he has to make about should he stay or should he go. But he's also in love for the first time, and he's trying to wrap his mind and heart around that and what it is that that means. And he's not sure he understands what love is, and he has this thing he wants to figure out about, what's the possessiveness of love, and that he doesn't want to see or experience love in that way. And so he goes out into the desert, and he's looking at things, he's noticing things, he's contemplating things, and he finds himself starting to be sleepy when suddenly he sees a couple of hawks in the sky, and he's watching them and looking, and he's like, maybe I can learn something from them. And then bam, one of the hawks made a flashing dive through the sky, attacking the other. As it did so, a sudden fleeting image came to the boy, an army with its swords at the ready, riding into the oasis. The vision vanished immediately, but it had shaken him. He had heard people speak of mirages and had already seen some himself. They were desires that, because of their intensity, materialized over the sands of the desert. But he certainly didn't desire that an army invade the oasis. He wanted to forget the vision and return to his meditation. He tried again to concentrate on the pink shades of the desert and its stones, but there was something there in his heart that wouldn't allow him to do so. "Always heed the omens," the old king had said. The boy recalled what he had seen in the vision and sensed that it was actually going to occur. And so, shaken by this vision and not being able to sort of cast the vision aside, he decides to go back to the oasis and talk to his friend, the camel driver. And as he explains everything to the camel driver who understands omens and tradition and the ways of the oasis, even though he's not from the oasis, he says, you know what? You need to pay attention to this. This is something that is serious. And so he also talks about the difference between the tribesmen who live in the oasis, who are fighting for the oasis, who are always living in the present moment. Because if they get pulled into the past or they get pulled into the future, they could die. Or they could make a mistake and one of their fellow tribesmen could die. But he says the camel drivers, they're not warriors, they're not tribesmen. And so he tends to live for the future. He always wants to know what's going on so he can be ready for it. And so he tells him this story of how he went to see a seer, and he wanted to find out what was going to happen. And the seer, he's kind of looking at him, and he's like, if good things are coming, they will be a pleasant surprise. If bad things are, and you know in advance, you will suffer greatly before they even occur. Well, I want to know about the future because I'm a man, the camel driver said to the seer. And men always live their lives based on the future. The seer was a specialist in the casting of twigs. He threw them on the ground and made interpretations based on how they fell. That day, he didn't make a cast. He wrapped the twigs in a piece of cloth and then put them in his bag. "I make my living forecasting the future for people," he said. "I know the science of the twigs, and I know how to use them to penetrate to the place where all is written. There, I can read the past, discover what has already been forgotten, and understand the omens that are here in the present. When people consult me, it's not that I'm reading the future, I am guessing at the future. The future belongs to God, and it is only He who reveals it under extraordinary circumstances. How do I guess at the future? Based on the omens of the present. The secret is here in the present. If you pay attention to the present, you can improve upon it. And if you improve upon the present, what comes later will also be better. Forget about the future and live each day according to the teachings, confident that God loves His children. Each day in itself brings with it eternity." And so once again, we are told how important living in the present moment is, how vital it is to be present for everything that is happening, and how we are always choosing how to show up in the present moment. Are we focusing on what it is that requires our attention right here, right now? Or are we getting pulled into the past or worrying about the future? And so this is so much about what it is that we teach here, about living according to principle, about being mindful, about personal responsibility and how we create our life, right? No one else is creating our life for us. We are the ones who are choosing every single moment. And based on those choices, whether we're aware of them or not, whether we're aware that we're making those choices or not, is how we experience our life. So the whole point of living is to be more mindful, is to be more conscious with our choices. Because as we become more conscious with our choices, then the more we can live according to spiritual principle, the more we can embody who and what we truly are, the more we can express our gifts the way they're meant to be expressed in, through, and as us, kind of like every single week we sit here and listen to this music by the Elevate Trio. Imagine if these guys just sat on their gifts. Imagine if they're like, not today. Imagine if they were afraid to try playing a new song. If they were afraid that, oh no, is anybody going to show up? Imagine if they let their fear stand in their way. What would happen? We would miss out on receiving an experience and being immersed in all of that beauty, all of that artistry that only they can share in the ways that they do. Each and every one of us have gifts like that. Each and every one of us has something that is just waiting and ready to be unleashed into the world, and it is our responsibility to allow that to happen. Okay? So living in the present moment, that is part of it, and paying attention to what it is that is ours to do and how it is that is ours to show up, that is also part of our work. So the boy goes back to the desert. He's sitting there, the boy is back in the oasis, and he goes back to the desert to think about what to do, and then finally he decides, I'm going to go and see the chieftains. I'm going to go and see the tribes, or the chieftains of the tribe. He goes to see the chieftains of the tribe. He has to wait for a little bit, and ultimately he goes in. He tells them what's going on, that he saw this vision, and then the chieftains, they're wondering, well, who is this kid? We've lived in the desert. Our families have lived in the desert for centuries and traditions and generations and whatever. Why would he know? And so they say, who is this stranger who speaks of omens? And he says, it is I. Well, why would the desert reveal such things to a stranger when it knows that we have been here for generations? Because my eyes are not yet accustomed to the desert, the boy said. I can see things that eyes habituated to the desert might not see. And also because I know about the soul of the world, he thought to himself. The oasis is neutral ground. No one attacks an oasis, said a third chieftain. I can only tell you what I saw. If you don't want to believe me, you don't have to do anything about it. And so what's happening here is the boy is offering a fresh perspective, something that the chieftains, because they're so accustomed to their life, their traditions, the ways of the oasis, may not otherwise have seen if not for someone else bringing a new perspective to them. So they go and they talk about it, and even though they're unsure of the boy, and the boy is unsure of the situation, but he's glad that he told them because he knows it's the right thing to do, because it's also part of him realizing his personal legend. The chieftains ultimately decide, because they are aware of omens, because they believe in their faith, because they believe in their traditions, and they trust their faith and traditions and omens, that they're going to act, but with one caveat. Tomorrow we are going to break the agreement that says that no one at the oasis may carry arms. Throughout the entire day, we will be on the lookout for our enemies. When the sun sets, the men will once again surrender their arms to me. For every 10 dead men among our enemies, you will receive a piece of gold. But arms cannot be drawn unless they also go into battle. Arms are as capricious as the desert, and if they are not used, the next time they might not function. If at least one of them hasn't been used by the end of the day tomorrow, one will be used on you. And so this here also speaks. Your face. This also speaks to how important it is for us to not just pay attention to our talents, our gifts, whatever it is that is the call on our heart, but to actually embrace it and allow it to unleash itself through us. Because if it doesn't, well, guess what? This power, this presence, this creativity, the artistry, the beauty, the infinite possibilities of who we can be in any given moment, all of that is always moving and grooving forward. And if we cut it off, it's not going to wait for us to go, okay, now. It's just going to find another way, another outlet. And so again, imagine if any of us who have something that we offer in this world just decided, not now. Whether it's we're afraid, whether we don't want to, whether we're too tired, this energy, this creativity is just going to continue to flow, but somewhere else. And not only are we going to miss out the opportunity to more fully embody who and what we are, but everyone around us is going to miss out on that opportunity of experiencing us fully embodied as who and what we are. And so the boy's a little bit freaked out that he might die, but he knows he did the right thing because he also knows that he's going to save a lot of people. And so he goes back into the desert. He's walking along, knowing he did the right thing, just staring at the desert again, being friends with it, being guided by it. And then all of a sudden, he looks up because there's this thundering sound, and right in front of him, there is this massive white horse. And on this massive white horse, astride that horse, there is this tribesman that he doesn't know about. He doesn't know who it is because he's all dressed in black, and all he can see is just the tiny little slit of his eyes, and his eyes look like the meanest, most terrifying eyes that the boy has ever seen. And as he looks, he thinks for sure this is one of the enemies, one of the warriors that is going to come in, like his vision told him. And so he's looking, but he stands there still, even though he's afraid. He's standing there because he knows that, it's the right thing to do. And so, bear with me again. The guy is on this horse. He's looking really terrifying, and he pulls out a massive sword, and he says, "Who dares to read the meaning of the flight of the hawks?" "It is I who dare to do so," said the boy, again thinking that this is an enemy. And as he sees this sword, he thinks, I'm about to die, so he lowers his head. But then he also says, "Many lives will be saved because I was able to see through to the soul of the world." The horseman looks at him. He lowers his sword, but not to cut off the boy's head. He lowers it slowly until it touches the boy's forehead and draws a single drop of blood. And they both stand there, perfectly still, for just a few moments. The horseman asks the boy, "Why are you here?" The boy tells him about his personal legend. The horseman listens, and then he withdraws the sword. "I had to test your courage," the stranger said. "Courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world." The boy was surprised. The stranger was speaking of things that very few people knew about. "You must not let up, even after having come so far," he continued. "You must love the desert, but never trust it completely. Because the desert tests all men, it challenges every step and kills those who become distracted." What he said reminded the boy of the old king. "If the warriors come here and your head is still on your shoulders at sunset, come and find me," said the stranger. The same hand that had brandished the sword now held a whip. The horse reared again, raising a cloud of dust. "Where do you live?" shouted the boy as the horseman rode away. The hand with the whip pointed to the south. The boy had met the alchemist. And so where we leave off here is the boy being tested again and again and again, but finally meeting his mentor. And the alchemist has finally met his mentee. And so in the hero's journey, we will be tested again and again and again. We will be at different stages of the hero journey at any given time. But the whole thing is that we can't allow the fear of failure or the fear of anything else to get in our way, because there is this beauty, this wonder, this magic even that only we can offer into the world, and it is our job to do so. And so this whole personal legend story is about the boy finding his, about realizing who it is that he is, what it is that he is meant to do in the world. And even though there is this challenge after challenge and struggle after struggle, now he is at a stage that he has overcome enough of those challenges and struggles that he trusts that he is on the right path. That even as the challenges and the struggles might become bigger and even more death-defying than they were before, that he knows who he is. He is so anchored in his own incredible power and creativity and capability that the fear is taking a back seat to the pull of that vision that is before him. And so the title of my talk today is Beyond the Fear of Failure. So when following our dreams, it's the fear of failure rather than the seeming punishment we're enduring along the way that can often hold us back. When we allow ourselves to more fully embody and trust the love we truly are, we get not only to experience, but prove again and again and again how infinitely powerful, resilient, and capable we are, no matter what. Thank you, and so it is.